It's been about 4 weeks now that I've been trying to learn video editing, video lighting, shooting, hosting a show, putting it together, and we decided to jump right into the fire and do our first guerrilla studio tour, and we got to go to one of the coolest studios on the planet, Sound City Studio A. I hope you enjoy this episode, complete with funky lighting and unfortunate buzz on some of the microphones during the recordings, but we have fun. Hopefully you will too, and hopefully you'll keep coming back. This may look like any other industrial complex in America, but we're actually out in Van Nuys, California. And if you're a fan of rock and roll, I don't care whether you're into extreme metal or acoustic-based classic rock, this is hallowed ground. This is Studio A of Sound City, and this is Rock and Roll Central. There's so many incredible records have been made by producers and engineers sitting right in this chair in front of this console. This is a Neve 8028. It was actually custom built for Sound City by Rupert Neve, and it's actually the longest continuous Neve install in the world, according to Rupert Neve. The thing about this drum room, which is interesting, is it really wasn't designed as a drum room. This was just warehouse space for Vox amplification. And eventually the people at Vox built a small control room and started doing some recording before it got sold off to the current owners. It just happens to be what it is. It's got some magic that people love, and drum sounds sound great in here. Just go check out the discography if you want to listen to. Nirvana's Nevermind might point you in the right direction. One of the cool features here at Sound City is this, the piano. The piano itself is just an old Steinway. Lots of studios have that. But it's this part, which is a custom isolation box for recording piano. Elton John was here recording, and he wanted to be able to be in the same room with the band while they're recording, but they still wanted decent isolation between the drums and guitars and the piano. And so what Sir Reginald Dwight wants, Sir Reginald Dwight gets. So what they did was they custom built this isolation box. It's curved around and built to fit specifically on top of this piano. And so you can put this on top and record in with the drums and get some decent isolation. And it's actually not fixed here too. So if you're recording and you don't want this on here, like the last time I recorded piano here, you can just pull that off and have a traditional piano. The studio itself doesn't have any isolation directly attached to it, but just about 5 feet away are a couple of these rooms, which can be used as isolations, and actually some people will even go and put the drums into these super small, tight, dead rooms just for a different sound if they don't want that big live room sound from the main room. But talk about time warp. You can just imagine what might have gone on in this room in Los Angeles in the 1970s. And no decent studio is complete without a kick-ass lounge. Can you say Boogie Nights?
Oh, well, basically, when I started actually right after Nirvana's Nevermind
Okay.
was done tracking here. And pretty much at that point, the studio, maintenance-wise, was in a horrible state.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did was I recapped the Studio A console, the 8028,
Mhm.
replaced all the bus switches. We sold our 8068 to Rick Rubin,
Mm-hmm.
and went ahead and pulled all the audio wiring and changed it over into Megami.
So this was after one of the biggest selling records in the world got
Yeah.
tracked.
That's how we were able to do it.
Seeing that the place is wallpapered with gold and platinum records, do you have any idea how many gold and platinum records have been made here, or any guess on how many records have been sold?
We
out
were
of this?
figuring, we were figuring probably close to over 150 million.
Wow.
It could be more at this point.
Mhm.
It's like Neil Young's After the Gold Rush. It
Mhm.
wasn't on the wall, and it was actually Rick Rubin who told me that the record had been done here.
Uh-huh.
Because he talked to Neil, and Neil's like, "Oh, I recorded there."
Awesome.
Like, yeah.
So obviously Nirvana's Nevermind was massive, one of the biggest
Massive.
selling records of all time.
And it was a huge impact on the studio.
Mhm.
It did save the studio.
And this is a neat place because it's had both some of the commercially biggest selling records of all time, but also some of the hippest and coolest records, even that
Yeah.
don't reflect in sales
Sales.
figures. What are probably the biggest records that have come out of here?
Oh my gosh, I would probably say, besides Nevermind, like Damn the Torpedoes
Mm-hmm.
and Tom Petty's Wildflowers, Rage Against the Machine,
Mm-hmm.
System of a Down that did really well too. Obviously the new Metallica record.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, there's so many.
So Rick Rubin's got a real soft spot for this room.
He does. He absolutely hates driving to Van Nuys, but, but he loves the sound of the room.
Uh-huh.
So, and we do appreciate it. I mean,
But of the catalog, since you've come here, have there been any records that really stand out as being, albums that you listen to at home when you wind down from the day, or things that were really, really special?
I would say definitely Tom Petty's Wildflowers
Mhm.
is one that I absolutely love, and just because my music collection's all over the place, it would be Rage Against the Machine.
Fantastic.
Um,
And they did that first album here, right?
yes, they did with Good Good Garth.
Uh-huh.
And memory-wise, it would be working with Johnny Cash.
Awesome.
Yeah, I
And he did the Unchained album here?
Yeah.
And was Rick Rubin producing
He
that
did
one?
produce it, and the backup band was Tom Petty and the
Oh,
Heartbreakers.
awesome.
Yeah, it was just such an amazing time. Working with him was such a pleasure. And then Carl Perkins came down, and then even Tom Petty was blown away that we had these two true legends walking down the hallway.
Yeah.
And we're all just like, oh, and they were so nice.
Yeah,
That
very
was the
cool.
thing. No ego, no attitude. So it was an amazing time. Every time I run into Belmont Tent, he always brings it up.
Cool.
I don't think
So one of the things that's obvious to anybody who's walked in here is that this place is a time warp. You walk in the front door of this place and you're walking back 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've heard that when you took over, there was actually some resistance to you changing anything here in the studio.
Yeah, very, and still is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, they're especially in this room or in the studio part. They're very superstitious about everything, from the paint on the walls. I gotta make sure I use a certain kind of paint, to the floor that is barely holding together. But if I change the floor, then obviously I would change the sound. Of the room.
Absolutely.
So I couldn't build an ISO booth in the room for vocals. So eventually we have what we call the Easy Bake, which is a vocal booth that we can break down and move out of the room or move it around the room or do whatever that the particular engineer or producer wants. So it kind of made everybody happy at the same time.
And a lot of people regard this as one of the best drum rooms in the world. So
Yeah.
there's some good reasons for being a little bit nervous about changing anything in it. I understand there is no Pro Tools rig owned by Sound City.
No, don't tell Digi. But no, we don't. We do not own a Pro Tools rig.
And I think that's really fun, and I know a few people who will consider that God status, that you've kept it that authentic, which I actually love. And of course, here in LA, we can rent in anything you ever need.